Hello there. It's me. I am back. And this time I am here with a regular show, unlike last week. I don't know if how many of you watched. Sorry, I'm still getting myself ready here. I've been working all day today doing my other job for Dr. Anderson, making phone calls to clients. And yes, Ward, hooray, I'm here. Yeah. So I saw I had about 2 minutes to get on the air here, set up my computer, type my little stuff into YouTube, and go on. But yes, last week, if you did see the show I did, it was very impromptu. It was brief. It was an emergency situation. And no, it did not directly have to do with the fires. But, Ward, yes, Miss Anastasia, she's doing okay. She had some more car trouble yesterday, but she's all right. But last week I had to my real life got in the way of doing the show because a friend of mine was in distress. And if you know anything about me, I am very, very loyal to the people in my life. And so if you watch the show, Anastasia was here beside me on the couch. Initially, I knew I was not going to be able to do my 5 o'clock show because I had to drive her to downtown Los Angeles, into the pits of downtown Los Angeles, so we could bail her towed car out. Uh, Anybody's ever gone through that, it's horrific, really horrific. And frankly, I think it's cruel because it's prohibitively expensive. And we found out she's got to pay another ticket on top of the towing. So we're getting into hundreds of dollars here. And for some people, that's an unfair hardship, but we can go into that another time. Um, but it was an emergency because I was just having a nice leisurely little afternoon with her. We went out to get coffee together and just chat. And then it was suddenly like, oh shit, it's after 3 o'clock. And of course, where I live in the front at 3 o'clock, you have to move your cars because of heavier rush hour traffic. So they clear an extra lane. And so if you don't move your car, guess what happens? These little car ferries come and take your car away. Um, so we were back here, and I have to say, I really admired how Anastasia handled it. She handled it much better than I would have because I would have been blowing a gasket. I would have been freaking. She stayed calm. She stayed collected. Okay, this is what we need to do. So we came up here to my apartment and I said, well, I'm not going to get to do a 5 o'clock show. So let me at least just do a quick little message or something. And anyway, I was going to record it. I thought, oh, let's just go on live, go on for a few minutes. So those few minutes, you know me, this was originally a 30-minute show and it's grown into something larger. We were meant to just be on for 3 minutes to explain what was going on. And then that turned into almost half an hour. And I later found out if you've ever done YouTube Live, and you're setting up, there's a little thing where you have to hit a button for it to go public. In my haste, I didn't hit the button. So I was like later that evening thinking, well, where's the show? Did it not record? Did it not go out? And then I saw what had happened. I fixed it. And so most of you who saw it probably saw the delayed version because I don't know if I had even one person watching last week at 4:30. Let me check comments here, Ward. I hope you've gotten some plug-in flashlights so as not to chance candles getting knocked over by Lady Sasha. Oh yes, yes. I'm going to be talking about that because I spoke about it some last week. Um, I don't consider myself out of the woods by any means. Today, I haven't seen too much evidence of it. I'm even looking out my window right now for blowing trees and things. They were forecasting 100-mile per hour winds today. I don't know how much of that has actually happened. I haven't had a chance to watch a television weather forecast or anything to see because um, a certain man has preempted a lot of our programming today, and I'm trying my best not to get into political comments here. But it was let's see here. Oh, is Kathy here? Hi, Kathy. Hi, Kathy. I'm so glad you're here. Such a sweet lady. I hope you're doing great. Um, but I got a new. I don't know if any of you have that thing called Citizen Alert on your phone, Citizen Bulletins. It's kind of like the equivalent of a police scanner tailored to your community, crime reports and things. Well, uh, they also do, like, warnings, like evacuation, fires, notices. Anyway, today, I think it was around 12 o'clock-ish or so, there was a notice that there was a brush fire in Griffith Park, which is across from where I live, and with the projection of the winds, I was like, "Oh, no. Not again. Not again. No, no, no." But, fortunately, they were on top of it. They got it out. Turns out it was an arsonist. Uh, yeah. Aside from the naturally occurring fires, that's another problem we have here. The copycat arsonists trying to get attention. And they thankfully caught the person who did it, and they got the fire out. But that was a close call. You know, I don't know if how many of you saw me last week. I was just telling some of the stuff I've been going through because I was on my last nerve, as just about one else in the city of Los Angeles was. And I even feel guilty saying that much because I don't really have much right to complain. As you can see, I still have my home. I got inconvenienced. My electricity was out for 3 days. Yes, that's a huge inconvenience. But compared to the tragedy of people who have just lost everything they have, and it goes into the thousands. I watch my language. I remind myself, "Don't complain, don't complain." But the human side of me, yeah, I have to admit, this is scary, and it's on edge when I hear that we're not over yet. And it was the reason I had my electricity was out was because of the winds, and not specifically the fires. It was, I think it was a day I saw the winds, the Santa Anas here got up to 98 miles per hour, and the next block beside me, we have these beautiful tall trees all along my street, Los Feliz Boulevard, big trees, like 4 stories high, roughly estimating. And the winds blew several of those trees down. And one of those trees came down, caught onto electrical wires, pulled down a whole pole, a whole power transformer, and just shorted out an entire electrical grid going all the way up into the Hollywood Hills and all throughout Los Feliz. And of course, I was in the line of it. Um, my one The one thing I was really grateful for, it didn't happen in the dead of summer when I couldn't have any air conditioning or anything. Otherwise, I was okay there. It was mostly the inconvenience of having to the only way I could charge my phone was in my car. I had to sit in my parking lot with the engine running idle. And I understand they have some better chargers now that are quicker, but I have one of those regular car chargers where it takes like 3-4 hours to charge your phone. And like most people, I use my phone a lot, even when I don't think I'm using my phone a lot, and it runs down pretty quickly. And I probably went through about $20 worth of gasoline just charging my phone. Um, and anyway, I'm better prepared. Better prepared. I talked about this last week. I might as well plug it again because I have finally started working on a bona fide emergency kit. That thing I've been saying forever I'm going to do every time we have an earthquake, a tremor, a scare like this. Oh, now's the time to make this earthquake preparedness bag. Now it's a fire bag too, but basic essentials. I'm working on it now. It's real. But I'll show it again because I think this is something probably everyone should have. I didn't know my sister had one, but you can get this on Amazon, $32. I'm not doing a commercial. This is public service. It's got a radio, shortwave, AM, FM, and it's got the weather band on here. It's got a flashlight and a reading light I think the flashlight's got like 40 hours of life to a battery charge. The reading light's like 22. It's got a compass, and It's got a port on the back where you can charge your cell phone, and it gives you 5 ways. Hey, Pam. Pam, my good friend Pomona, remember, she's the one who suggested this to me. She's probably having a laugh right now. Oh, there he is talking about this again, but I think everyone should have one of these. It gives you 5 ways to charge it. You've got a no, it's not commercial. You got a solar panel on top. You've got a crank you can turn. You can plug it in at a flash and just recharge the lithium battery that's in it. You can put AA batteries in it. They covered everything. The thing, as you can see, it weighs like an ounce. It fits in your bag, and this could be a real lifesaver. If I had had this a week and a half ago, it would have made such a difference in my life. But this is part of my preparedness bag. I bought myself a rechargeable flashlight, and also for Sasha here, I occurred to me how unprepared I was for her. I have a carrier for Sasha, but it's buried somewhere in the back of my closet where it would probably take me an hour to excavate it. So I also bought a cat harness and leash. Not that I would walk her, God forbid, but at least I can hold her in my arms and have the leash so she won't run away. So I'm trying to think of things like that. And I'm trying to think of like dried foods, things like, I can put in a bag. Pam also suggested a really nice backpack for me. I may go ahead and buy. But anyway, enough of the infomercial here, which I didn't intend it to be. I should look at my comments here. Yeah, Ward, you know, part of me wanted to avoid TV today. And, but then you see, I have, my other gig. I do Dr. Whimsy Anderson's show, Taco Tuesdays, on Tuesdays, of course. Might as well plug it now, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And on that show, we talk about all the current events. So I have to be versed. I have to watch the news. I have to know what's going on. And again, I'm trying my best not to get too political here. I've already gotten into trouble. I didn't really want to watch it today, but I thought, I need to. And also, it occurred to me, we can't just stick our heads in the sand like an ostrich or something. We have to know what's going on. That's part of being empowered. We have to know what's going on in the world, even if it's really galling and unpleasant to us. We still need to know. So that's where I am right now. Let's see. Okay, you were saying burning embers can fly over a mile. Well, actually, I was told burning embers can go 5 to 10 miles. In fact, my sister who lives in Colorado, she has since moved, but she used to live in Colorado Springs. And about a decade ago, they had some really bad fires, and a lot of them were caused by embers that would travel for miles and then land on a roof or in someone's backyard and set off the flames. And it was so bizarre here in Los Angeles because our fires during the peak were spanning something like a 30-mile area, all the way from the ocean, Pacific Palisades, going all the way out to Encino, the Valley, the Hollywood Hills. We were very worried about Griffith Park here for that reason, and this could all ignite again. So we're just being cautiously optimistic here. Let's see. Oh, The Wind with Lillian Gish. Okay, yes, I have seen that. In fact, I saw The Wind under the best circumstances possible. I saw it on a big screen with a full 86-piece orchestra at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles, and that's the big theater where they used to have the Academy Awards. I was there in June. I went to see Tarando, the Puccini's opera, which was, oh, that was incredible. But yeah, The Wind is an amazing movie, and I knew of it, but to experience it, because I mean, if anybody's ever watched the movie, that's what it is. The Wind, literally, from the very first scene to the very last scene, it is the wind and Lillian Gish dealing with it in her house, shaking and blowing and all that. We know anyway. Uh, um, Anyway, let me check some other comments here. Uh, oh yeah, Pam, thank you for saying you're proud. It's important to be prepared. Well, Pam, you played a role in that. You're very good for me, Pam. You you really are. Oh, yeah, I won't forget some extra emergency cat treats for Miss Sasha. Oh, Miss Sasha would not forgive me if I did that. I would know about it very, very quickly. Um, it's funny, when I got Sasha, um, she was a yeah, she was a 10-week-old kitten, and I got her from a woman in San Diego who breeds Siamese cats, and she breeds them with integrity, and, they're very healthy, they're strong, she avoids inbreeding. Um, yeah, I love Sasha. Anyway, she was 10 weeks old when I got her, and one of the things her name's Diane. Diane said to me, "I'm gonna warn you, this is a cat that is going to have a very strong say in your life and in your household. And if you're and she said a lot of people when they get cats, they just want a cat to kind of have it in the background like a wallflower or something. And she said, not this one. She said, I'm very good at reading personalities of kittens, and I can pretty much tell what they're going to be like when they were grown up. And she just nailed Sasha. That's exactly who she is. She has a very, very strong say in my life. But she's also like my best friend. I love her. I love her very, very much. And here she is making an appearance. She's actually behaving right now. Sometimes I hold her up to the cameras and like, let me go, let me go, let me go. Not in the mood for this. I don't want to be seen right now. I haven't done my hair. Um, and another thing that was interesting about Sasha, um, she didn't want anything to do. She was in a litter, two females, two males, and Diane said she wanted nothing to do with her sister and two brothers. She would go to her mother to be fed, and then she'd go off on her own. And there was like a kitchen drawer, it was open or something, and she'd go get in the kitchen drawer and be by herself. And she's been like that. She's going to be 10 years old in March. She still has that personality. You see, she's very sweet, very friendly, but she likes to go off and do her own thing. She likes to be alone too. But she makes me happy. Let's see, where's some other comments here? Oh, what? Your mother had to get a tooth pulled this morning, and she felt lucky to have an excuse to miss the DC debacle. Yep. Yeah. You know why I'm being careful about okay, you're saying any Gish dish. I wish I did have some Gish dish. From what I understand, Lillian Gish lived a very clean life. She was just a decent, upstanding woman, no scandals. Oh, yeah, I remember one story about her. Um, because her image was so squeaky clean, kind of like the Julie Andrews of the 1920s. This was when she was at MGM. Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM, said, "We got to spice up your image a little. We're going to make up a scandal for you and release it to the press." And Lillian Gish said, "No. Oh, no, no, no. No, no. I will leave the studio before I will consent to that." And so that's who Lillian Gish was. So that's probably why you won't find too much Gish dish, but that's a good term. Um, I'm sorry about your mother having to have her tooth pulled. I hope she's doing better. Uh, I guess Miss Sasha had enough exposure to her sibs under the queen cat's heart. Oh, yeah, well, that's true. She was eventually fired from MGM, but I don't know that it was because of her refusing to go along with the scandal or not. That's something I'd have to look up. There was a number of reasons. Lillian Gish proved, it wasn't the transition to sound. She certainly made sound movies throughout her life. So that wasn't the reason, but it was just a time in the 1920s when a lot of transitions were taking place in the movies in Hollywood, and a lot of tastes were changing. And maybe a lot of that was tied in with the transition from silent to sound movies, because if you've watched those early talkie pictures, they called them talkies. It wasn't just the fact that there was sound and there sound coming out of people's mouths and stuff. The whole look and feel of the movies was very, very different. Silent film had by the mid to late 20s had reached this incredible point of artistry as far as fluidity of the camera, the cinematography, and it took really decades to get that back again because when they transitioned to sound, the movie suddenly became very static out of necessity, because the microphone was in place. The actors couldn't move too far away from the mics because they weren't too sensitive. And also, you couldn't have a lot of camera movement. In fact, in the beginning, they had to put the cameras in these glass booths, these like phone booths, because of the noise of the cameras. They would pick up on the sound, and the poor cameramen would be in there just sweating to death. So those first few years of talking pictures, it was just a big change. But anyway, taste changed, and there were a number of major stars who did not make that transition. And where now that you mentioned it, maybe that did have part to do with it because uh, I know that Lillian Gish made the decision in the early 30s to leave Hollywood and go to the stage, do Broadway, and I think she said part of it was because she was forced out of Hollywood. Nice. So I had if I'd known that topic was gonna come up, I would have researched it a little better for you, but that's what I remember. Oh, yeah, Ward, Napoleon, 1927. Yeah, that's a great example of beautiful cinematography. I saw that on the big screen also. Now, my god, this was many years ago. This was when I was in college. That was a long time ago, college, and it was a big event in my little city, Richmond, Virginia. This theater, we had this wonderful art house theater just off of my college campus where they would screen old classic movies, silence, uh, out of economic necessity. They had to split the theater in 2, and they had to this is awful, but they had to show porn films in the second theater, and the reason for that was this was before VCRs and DVDs and things, when you still had to go to a movie theater to see that sort of thing. They said that was the only way they could afford to show all these art house films and silence and classics was because they showed the porn. The porn was what made money and supported the theater. So it was one of those Sophie's Choice decisions. Hi, Joyce. Thank you for joining. Hi. Oh, I've got all my friends here. This feels so good. And anyway, that's where I saw Napoleon. And that was, I think, 4 hours. Pretty close to it. It was an epic. 4 hours. And the only seat I could get was in the front row. Now, if you're seeing a stage show, front row is like heaven. You're right there seeing the actors up close. In a movie theater, no. I like to be at least in the middle or in the back. Being in the front row with a big movie screen, I had to sit like this with my head up for 4 hours. And I still remember the next day, my shoulders, my neck, my back, everything was so sore from that film, but it was such a beautiful experience. You got me thinking, I'm sure that's on Blu-ray. I'd love to see that again. Oh, yeah. I just, you know me. I love film and silent movies. Unfortunately, only about something like 10% of them still exist. Good 90% are considered lost. And a lot of that had to do uh, nitrate film, which is extremely fragile. It's also very flammable, extraordinarily flammable, but also over time it will just crumble to dust. So either you burned your theater down or people would open up cans and just find powder in there. So that's why we lost a lot of silent movies. Occasionally they get found. Occasionally stories will come up of like a landfill will be found and they'll discover all these tins of film that were buried and had been there for all these years, still preserved and still together. Or sometimes a long lost silent will be found like in the Ukraine or in Australia or something, and it'll be the only print in existence. But it's always exciting when something like that gets found. Let's see here. What's this? Let's see. or propaganda instead of bio, but excellent artistic cinematography. Are you referring to Napoleon? Oh, you had one of those wonderful theaters at your college campus too, Ward. I That was my joy. I am old enough. I was in college before the VCRs, and oh, we had cable, but VCRs, DVDs, home video had not ignited yet. So this was still the way to see these old movies, and and I had such a love already. So when I went to college, I could see them on the big screen. Oh my God, that's heaven. And speaking of nitrate, if you can ever come across a screening, if you have revival theaters and they show an original nitrate print of a film, oh, gorgeous. It's nitrate because of all the silver content in it. It was very bright, very luminous, with lots of nuances, much more so than a conventional black and white film. You just have to see it to really experience it. It's like if you've ever, experienced, a real three-strip Technicolor film, and occasionally those get revived, the process of the old Technicolor where they had those cameras shot 3 strips of black and white film, one for red, one for yellow, one for blue, and then it was all sandwiched together, the prints, each one was printed in their color, and then it was sandwiched together, and that's how you got your beautiful Technicolor print. And if you watch those old movies like Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, the depth, the the value of the colors, the hues. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to watch those. And whenever I've seen one in a movie theater, it's just like, wow, wow, I am so enthralled. Let's see. Oh, yes, that's right, War. I forgot about Napoleon having multi screens. I think the version I saw, because I think it was shown originally at Lincoln Center. When I say originally, I mean the revival back in the 80s, obviously not the original in the 20s. I think it was Lincoln Center. I could be wrong on that, where they showed it, and they showed it with the 3 screens, side by side, where it's all synchronized together. The version I saw, I think, was a traveling print of it. So it was just a print. It was a widescreen print where they just printed it with the 3 screens. But I know what you're talking about, because another example of that is, Cinerama. Cinerama, which lasted for about 10 years or so. It's in from 1953 to early 60s. But movies like, one that comes to mind, How the West Was Won. Fabulous movie. I think, big all-star cast. That was done in Cinerama with the 3 screens put together. And, here in Hollywood, where I live, there's the famous Cinerama Dome, which was built specifically for showing Cinerama films, the rounded off walls with areas wide enough for the 3 screens. But unfortunately, that theater was built just as Cinerama was coming to an end, and it's just been used for many years just for regular film. I didn't know nitrate could burn even underwater. I know it's extraordinary flammable. In fact, I understand that theater projectionists had to have special training, like fire protection, how to put out fires, what to do if this happens, because it was a very common occurrence. And there are stories of movie theaters burning down. And also, I'm reminded of the story of Robert Evans, the producer. At his home in Beverly Hills, he had a private screening room, and he had a huge collection of original nitrate films, and it burned down. His screening room burned down, and there was a lot of speculation it was because of all that nitrate film he had. And I even have a story there. It's not my story, but it's a very close personal friend story. So it's only passed down secondhand, one person to another. He used to supplement his income. He used to do high-end catering for, I think it was for Wolfgang Puck, where they would cater a lot of big, big events, Beverly Hills Homes, celebrity parties, like Marvin Davis at his mansion, others. But anyway, he was there, at Robert Evans' home, and it was the night the screening room later burned down, and my friend had nothing to do with this. I promise you, he promised me, but he did sneak into the screening room. Apparently, it was open or something. I can't remember, or maybe they were told it was okay to walk in there. I don't know if he actually sneaked in, but he was in the screening room. In the screening room, and then several hours later, the news broke out that it had burned down after the party was over and everyone had left, and my friend was like, "Well, I don't think I did anything. I don't think I struck any matches or anything," but I was kidding him about that. "Oh, like you're the kiss of death to screening rooms and nitrate film." And the other thing now I know why he had to leave early. This was a funny story. I'm not giving his name here, so I'm not embarrassing him, and he'd kill me if I told this. Gave his name, but anyway, he was working as a caterer, and he was a little embarrassed by that, because he also had a job on Rodeo Drive, but, it's an expensive city to live in, so he needed to supplement his income. Well, he was there, and of course, he was there in his little waiter uniform and everything, and had to go out with a tray and serve hors d'oeuvres and pour drinks, and he saw some of his friends there as guests, and he called me on the phone, and this was like Lucy calling Ethel, "Chuck, I don't want them to see me here. I'm too embarrassed. I don't want them to see me here working here. I gotta get out of here. I gotta pretend that I'm sick or something. Come on, you gotta help me. Come up with an excuse. I gotta get out of here." And I thought, Lucy and Ethel. So I just said, "Tell him you're sick. Tell him you're not feeling well. Just leave." So that's the reason he left early. So it was kind of comical. And then to find out that Robert Evans' screening room burned down after he had been inside it. Anyway, yes, he would not want me to give his name. And that also brings up another story where we're on the topic. This was another friend who worked at 20th Century Fox on Pico Boulevard. If you know the studio, the world famous 20th Century Fox studios where Shirley Temple and Betty Grable and Marilyn Monroe were all kinds of stories I can tell there. Because my friend had keys to almost everything. And this was like 20 years ago. They were a little more lax about security, I suppose. But I used to go out there and visit him a lot. And sometimes, like on late at night, like on a Friday evening or something, it was like 11 o'clock at night, midnight. We'd be, there'd hardly be anybody there. We'd be around and we would just take keys and go into sound stages and other areas and archives and stuff. And one of the things he took me into was a film storage vault where, and I saw it was like heavy concrete and so forth, I guess equipped for nitrate film. Well, we almost got into trouble, not because we were going to get caught, but the door, if it had slammed shut, we would have been locked in there for the whole weekend. And we almost that door started to move. And I said, "No!" And we ran out and got it just in time. He said, "Oh, thank God. Nobody would have found us until the following Monday." As much as I love movies and old Hollywood, I didn't want to die in a film for storage vault. So, oh boy, this is the great thing about this show. I never know what direction I'm going in. I just follow your guys' leads, and I love it. Oh yes, don't forget that cache in Dawson City, Yukon under the tundra. Well, also, who was I talking to about this? Might have been you, Pam. I can't remember. Forgive me. But it was just a few days ago. Sasha, she's getting into something over there. I was talking about this film, these salt mines. It's either, I think there's one in Utah and one in Kansas, these massive underground salt mines. I mean, like miles and miles and miles of tunnels. But because of the salt, it's the perfect climate, very low moisture. And also the temperature underground is just perfect for storing film, videotape, audio tape, anything that needs to be archived. And also because it's so far down, it's considered like nuclear bomb proof. This is where things will survive. And I've heard stories like all of the Johnny Carson Tonight Show videotapes, for example, are stored there. And I was reading an article because they wanted to digitize all of the Tonight Shows, for putting on the internet, social media, syndication. They had to go to the vault, and a special order had to be issued, and security and everything. And people had to go take an elevator deep down into the salt mine and bring these all up and then bring them out to Los Angeles so they could be digitized. And then they were sent back. And I've also read stories of films being preserved. I think I read Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz, or I saw it on the supplementary section on the DVDs. When those were being given restorations, they had to send away to the salt mines to get the original camera negatives and everything, bring them up, bring them out here, bring them back, but at least things like that are being kept in a very, very safe place. Let's see. No, Ward, my friend was not a smoker. No, no, I'm certain he didn't do it. It was just one of those bizarre coincidences that he happened to be there just a few hours before it happened. And I don't let him up on that. Let's see. Let's see. I know there are film archives in different nations with vaulted films, but I'm not sure how many films are there, much less percentages of silence being preserved. It's just a whole potpourri of stories. I understand there's still a lot of silent movies that have been discovered, and they just have not. They're being kept, but they haven't been like new prints haven't been struck. They haven't been digitized, and a lot of that has to do with money. I know like the film department at UCLA here in Los Angeles does a lot of preservation. The Motion Picture Academy, but a lot of it is dependent on donations, and they've said they would love to just be able to restore everything. It's just not financially possible. So they have to, I used that term earlier, Sophie's choice, pick the ones that may have the most importance for the future. Um, let's see. I've heard of celebs who dump hors d'oeuvres into their handbags for their main courses. You know who used to do that? Lucy. Hey, this gives me a chance to do a Lucille Ball story real quick. She was telling this to my friend Jim Brochu, and it's in his book. In case anybody doubts this, I can back it up. I told a story here a few weeks ago about how I had a lot of viewers mad at me because of a story that Lucy said that she, for 9 months, helped raise young Liza Minnelli while Vincent went to Europe to film Lust for Life, the movie about Van Gogh. And I had people descending on me. How dare you make up lies like that? You should be ashamed of yourself. People like you should not be on Facebook telling lies. I mean, it was just all this stuff. And I had to point out over and over, Lucy said this herself. And I even pointed out the pages in the book of Jim Brochu's book where she said it, directly quoted to him. And anyway, she told this story when she was, this was long before she was in the movies, before she came to Hollywood. She was a dress model for a prestigious salon in New York City for a designer named Hattie Carnegie. And that was like, where they would, a lot of high society women would go there, celebrities, and these very beautiful young women would walk around, posing and showing off the gowns and dresses and talking them up. If you've ever seen the movie The Women, Norma Shearer, Joan Crawford, Rosalind Russell, there's a wonderful scene at where they're in one of those salons, and there's this model walking around going, zips up the back and no bones. Anyway, Lucy used to do that. She was a very good model. It was when she was a platinum blonde like Jean Harlow in those days. And she always said that the modeling experience served her well in her movie career. And even I Love Lucy, if you ever watch her, how innately poised Lucy was, how beautifully she walked, how she carried herself. That all came from her modeling days. Well, anyway, it was she was a working girl, and it was tough in New York City in those days to make enough money to live on. And she was, of course, sharing an apartment with her mother and her grandfather. And she said that a lot of the beautiful young models would go out on dates, dates with gangsters and, shall we say, sugar daddies, older men. And Lucy insisted it was not sexual or anything like that, but basically you were paid as an escort to go out on dates, go out to a nice restaurant or something. And she said part of it you would, underneath your dinner plate, there would be $100 bill, which she would, of course, promptly put in her purse. But because she was a working girl and she had to eat, she would look for ways to stretch out that meal. So she would bring a big purse with her, and she said one of the things she learned from one of the other models was you take a dinner roll and you hollow it out. You do this under the table where no one sees you, but you hollow out the dinner roll and you put some gravy in there, some mashed potatoes, put some roast beef in there, you close it up, and then wrap it up in a napkin and put it in your purse. And so she would sit there, acting all enthralled with her companion, and under the table, she'd be wrapping up dinner rolls so she'd have enough food for the next 4 or 5 days. So, when you said that about celebrities taking hors d'oeuvres in their purse, you made me think of that in Lucy, and, it also makes me think of my college days when, you know what it is when you're a quote unquote starving college student, and there's a friend of mine, we're close to this day. She lives on the East Coast, but we still kid each other over a lot of silly stuff like we're still college kids. But I know I've had people chide me for this. Chuck, how could you do a thing like that? That's dishonest, that's wrong. But anyway, there was this pizza place, and on Tuesday nights it was all you could eat. All the pizza, all the soft drinks you wanted, all the breadsticks, all that. Well, my friend Anne would bring a big tote bag. Yes, you know where this is going. Bring a big tote bag. And in that tote bag would be a thermos bottle and a roll of aluminum foil and a roll and some plastic bags and some saran wrap. And we'd be under the table wrapping up food, putting it in the bag. Yes, I know, I know. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I was a 19-year-old college kid. It was like Lucy, you do what you have to do at the time. So, yes, I was guilty of it myself. Let me look at some comments here. Probably a comment going, "Chuck, how could you do something like that?" What was that SCTV skit with John Candy playing Elizabeth Taylor sneaking hors d'oeuvres? I haven't seen that, but I can imagine it. I remember SNL. This was in the late 70s when John Belushi. You remember that? John Belushi played Elizabeth Taylor. And this was when I was living in Richmond, Virginia. And at the time, Elizabeth was married to Virginia State Senator John Warner. This was Elizabeth's period where she had decided she wanted to leave Hollywood. She wanted to be a normal person. And they had a farm in central Virginia, but they also, because of his position, had to spend a lot of time in Richmond. I heard they even had an apartment in Richmond, Virginia. And this was something that made national news. It was one of those Republican fundraiser dinner party banquets. And Elizabeth, God bless her. I love Elizabeth, so this is not to denigrate her in any way, but she, poor thing, she choked on a chicken bone. And I, I, I don't know, someone had to do a Heimlich remote procedure on her, or she had to go to the hospital. I don't know. I don't remember, but she choked on the chicken bone, and thankfully she was okay. But a few days later on SNL, on the Weekend Update, they go, "Well, we have a special guest here, Miss Elizabeth Taylor." And of course, it's John Belushi in full drag as Elizabeth Taylor, the eyebrows, the lipstick, the jewels, the wig. I mean, yeah. I cannot imagine Elizabeth being too happy with this. But anyway, it was John Belushi as Elizabeth Taylor, and he had a great big turkey leg, like Henry VIII, eating the turkey leg. And in the middle of the interview, choking on the bone. Oh, it was, yes, the worst taste possible, but anyway, I remember that. I'm gonna have to look on YouTube. I wanna see John Candy playing Elizabeth. I understand he was a very, very sweet man. I had a friend who met him once at a Dodgers game, sat near him, and always everybody just loved him, and I even read about Maureen O'Hara. I think it was the very last theatrical film she ever made. There's a little tangent here, but, it was the very last film was with John Candy, where she was playing his mother, his overbearing mother, and John Candy at the time was a big star, and sadly he passed on, but he was very big at the time, and Maureen was looked upon as an old has-been, an old movie star, and they gave him this big, beautiful trailer, with all the amenities in it, with the bar and television and everything, these celebrity trailers. And they gave Maureen this little, basically like a U-Haul truck or something. I mean, it's like a box on wheels. It was very, in John Candy's opinion, it was very degrading and very insulting to such a great star. And she did not complain, but he was not happy about it. And he went to the studio heads and demanded that they give her a trailer also. They said, we're not giving that old star her own trailer. We don't have it in the budget. We won't do it. So he took matters in his own hands. He went, cleaned out his trailer, took the keys, and went over to Maureen O'Hara and said, "This is your trailer now. I'm giving it to you." And she, "Oh, no, 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 no." And he insisted. He was such a gentleman. And he did not have a trailer for much of the production of the film. He just sat among the guys and joked with them and everything. That's who he was anyway. And I think the producers were so ashamed, they ended up giving him another trailer too. But Maureen O'Hara gave many interviews and she praised John Candy for being such a beautiful gentleman. So you just made me think of that. See how we go off on tangents here? Um, Oh, yes, yes, where it's someone like Lucy's character in Stage Door who dated for the dinners to eat. Well, of course, that movie, is, based on the, oh my god, I'm trying to think of the name, the Rehearsal Club, I think that's what they called it. It's a place, I don't know if it's still around in New York, but for decades, it was a place for aspiring actresses to go. They'd share rooms together and board, and it was made very, very affordable, and I think a number of major stars and a lot of major theater stars donated to it to keep it going. Carol Burnett stayed there for a while in the 1950s, but they interviewed a lot of the people who had been there, and I would imagine they talked to Lucy about it, and, they took a lot of these anecdotes and wrote them into the script. So they might have taken that line directly from Lucy herself. Yes, Joyce, arm candy. Yes, yes. Oh, you're making me think, when I used to do you know, I was in the health industry in West Hollywood, and I had so many, many celebrities in there. And sometimes it was minor celebrities. Like there was this one woman, she was older, but still very, very lovely. And she was never a major star, but she had been in the movies. I can't remember her name, but showed me a picture, so just stunning back in the early 1940s. And she's told me a story about Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby laid eyes on her and said, "Well, who's the candy? I can't do a Bing Crosby impression, but who's the candy?" So that became our little joke whenever she'd come in the store. I go, "Oh, there's the candy." And she loved it to the point where if she had to call on the phone and ask questions, she'd go, "Chuck, it's the candy." Let's see, where's some other comments here, by the way. Also, Lucy really had hot water soup. Yeah, like Schwitz did on Lucy's show. Well, actually, Joan Rivers wrote about that in her autobiography. She went through some really, really hard times, when she left home, the comfort of her home, because she was so passionate about being in show business. Originally, she wanted to be a serious dramatic actress, and then she found out she was funny, and she started doing gigs as a comedian, but she had lean periods where all she could afford to do was go in a diner, take packets of ketchup. She would order a teacup of hot water, and then she'd take packets of ketchup and put them in the hot water and make tomato soup. And I think Lucy was doing that. Oh, another story Lucy told, she'd go into a diner and she'd look for someone who had had a coffee and donut, and there was, like, a piece of the donut still left on the saucer, so she'd go there and sit there, and then she'd call for the waitress, "Oh, can I have some more coffee, please? And, oh, maybe another donut," and so that's how she would, sometimes eat and get free coffee that way. Um, what's that? Interview Miss Taylor Singer, she wants ice cream for breakfast, she'll have ice cream for breakfast. Senator Hubby was not amused. I think that was a Barbara Walters interview. I think that was where Barbara Walters interviewed them at the farm in Virginia, and Elizabeth had started gaining weight, but she said she was happy. She said, she was basically saying, "I don't know if I'm ever going back to Hollywood." I think Elizabeth later said in life, "I tried to run away from my fame, but my fame wouldn't let me." But anyway, this was one of those times where I think she was convinced she was just going to be the senator's wife. She was going to be a farm wife. There were even pictures of her sitting on a tractor plowing the field. Now it's probably publicity, but Barbara Walters said, "Aren't you concerned about getting fat?" And Elizabeth said, "I am fat. What are you talking about?" I remember that. But that's great what she said about ice cream for breakfast. Joyce, it's 3 degrees there? Oh my gosh, feels like -23. I remember those times when I lived back east. That wind chill factor. I think the coldest I ever remembered was -5. And I probably where you are, it gets a lot colder than that. And of course, my dear friend Pam, way up north, it's much colder than that too. But here, -5. And also they go by Pam, you go by Celsius instead of Fahrenheit too. So I think you were once confused and I said -5. And you thought, well, what's the big deal about that? That's not so bad. And then you converted it and go, oh yeah, that is cold. And I remember this because I was driving home from college and I had 2 cats at the time. And I was trying to get home for Christmas, and we got hit with a blizzard, -5, and I had my heat going full blast with those 2 cats in there, and I thought, "Oh my god, what is gonna happen if I get stranded on the road or something? What am I gonna do?" Thankfully, that didn't happen, but I will never forget, this was when I had to pump gas. My hands were so numb. I could not I had to take 2 hands and try to get them around the gas pump. I couldn't press it in. My fingers were so numb. And again, showing how old I am, this was the time when you actually remember those credit card slips with the carbon and you had to sign them? I couldn't hold the pen. I had to go inside the gas station, warm my hands up enough to where I could hold a pen so I could sign for my gas. That I remember. Goddess Val, hello from happy West Palm Beach, where traffic is back to normal now that 45 is in DC. Or well, 45 and 47. Um, let's see who else is on here. Let's see, maybe the late Marjorie Merriweather post Spirit feels even relieved that her one-time home won't be so crass so often. Let's see, it's 3 degrees. Oops, feels much colder, -23. Frost. Oh, Joyce, you haven't had frostbite, I hope. Um, that's a very real danger. The other thing I remember about Richmond, Virginia, because well, in the summertime, it was unbelievably humid, as much of the East Coast is. But because we had all that humidity, that moisture in the air, in the wintertime, we would get the worst ice storms. I remember, oh, the sidewalks, the steps, streets, it was horrible. I mean, it's a miracle I didn't break bones because there were many times I would like fall down the steps coming out of a building, or I'd just walk and suddenly slip into a backflip on the sidewalks and things. I probably should have had cleats, but you have to be careful. Uh, let's see, where's some other things here? No. Oh yeah, Joyce, you have plenty of cold weather gear. I bet you do. You have to be prepared. It's kind of like what I was saying beginning the show, getting prepared for my emergency kit. I'm actually gonna do it. Yeah, I was about when I saw how unprepared I was the week before, I thought, "What am I gonna do if I had" because we were getting these notices. I didn't get an evacuation notice, but I got 3 warnings to evacuate. The ones where they tell you, "Be prepared to grab your pets, your belongings, and run out the door." It's basically like that, and I realized I was not ready to do that. And, one of the notices came at 4 in the morning, and it wasn't just, not like a little ding, 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 ding. It was, and you're 4 in the morning, you're, it scares you to death, and you see that warning on there. I looked at it and I thought, okay, it's just a warning. I'm going back to sleep. I did. I thought, what am I going to do? That's bad, but that's where I was. I think that was my mind frame at 4 in the morning, being awakened in the middle of the night. I wasn't really thinking. That was not smart. But it was like the day before or the day before that. We had we got a warning at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This was when the Hollywood Hills were burning, and it was looking like it was going to head over here to my way near Griffith Park. And it was that thing about warning, be prepared to grab your pets and your belongings. Well, I got that at 4. And because I only had candlelights and because it gets dark at 5, I was like, I got 1 hour. I got 1 hour to gather all my stuff and get ready here. And then God bless my dear mentor, Whimsy. I love her dearly, but she contacted me, said, "Well, I'm going to be doing a show in an hour, and I think our viewers would like to have a live update on what's going on in LA." And I was like, "Whimsy, I got like an hour here to pack a bag and maybe have to vacate, and I have no internet right now." And she said, "Well, you can do it on your iPhone." And so, yes, I had to go in my car with my card charger and went on her show. And I was, I'm always happy to do it for her, but it's like I didn't have any time to prepare or anything, and I mean, I'm sure her viewers saw me just wigging out. Oh my, what am I gonna do? Let's see here. What are some other comments here? By the way, the day Dina Merrill died, a large sinkhole opened up in her mother's home. Oh dear. Now, was it inside the home or in the yard? Oh, because I've heard of stories of that happening. Gee. Um, Joyce, the first winter that I moved to Cedar Rapids, I was unprepared. I'd been living in Tucson for 15 years. Oh, I know how you feel. I'm very spoiled by Southern California to where I forget. I forget sometimes to bring an umbrella, to bring a jacket. I don't think about things like that. And I remember one time that happened to me. I was flying to Colorado. I believe it was for one of my niece's weddings. And here in Los Angeles, it was 90 degrees. So I get on the plane, I'm shorts, t-shirt, not thinking that it was about the fact it was about 37 degrees in Colorado when I arrived. And I say nothing how weird I probably look standing there in shorts and a t-shirt in that weather. But yeah, it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget. Now the flip side of that, my first winter here in California, I've told this before. I was a little depressed at Christmas time because, it's the first Christmas away from family and a lot of friends. And also, I was used to East Coast Christmases, and sometimes we'd have white Christmases. Well, out here, it was about 90 degrees. It was sweltering. It was like the dead of summer. And I didn't enjoy it. To me, this is not Christmas. It shouldn't be 90 degrees. It felt weird. Of course, I have friends in Australia who tell me that's normal. They tell me in Australia they commonly have beach parties, celebrate Christmas, but I wasn't ready for that. But you know where I really loved it was the following week, New Year's Day, when it was still 90 degrees. And then I thought, well, this isn't so bad. And I had a friend, in fact, it was my friend Ann, the one that I told you we used to um, get creative in the pizza restaurant with the tote bag, the Reynolds wrap. And she called my apartment building had a pool. And I had one of those remember those old cordless phones they were about the size of a brick and they had a long antenna. Anyway, I had a cordless phone. And I was out by the pool and she's going, And she lives in the Washington, D.C. area, and she said, "Oh, Chuck, it's freezing. I can't get my heat to work, and I slipped on the ice, and I fell down the stairs, and I can't get my car to start. It's so cold. How are you doing? How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm sitting here by the pool, and I'm lying in the sun, and it's 90 degrees." I felt a little guilty about that part. Like I was rubbing it in. But I thought, "Yeah, I have arrived. I'm in California now." Um, oh, God is value. You're beginning to digitize important photo slides, and you will. Good for you. Good for you. I think we should all do that. I mean, I'm sure you know this. Do not throw away your originals. Hold on to them because things can go wrong with digital. It can go wrong. Files get corrupted, technology can change. I've heard of cases of older files you can't open up anymore. So always keep your originals. But that said, it is a fabulous way to preserve your stuff, to have it all in one place. Like you can have it on your iPad or on your phone where you can pull it all up. Um, Big project I did, and I loved doing this, but it was arduous. It took me almost 3 years. It was after my mother and father had died. I took possession of all of our family photos, and I mean all. And I started just slowly digitizing them, like on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, sitting down and those scanners, it takes forever. And I try to line up several pictures so I could do several at a time. But after about 3 years, I managed to digitize all my pictures, and I am blessed with this phenomenal memory. I just am. I don't know why. I just am. And I can look at pictures and remember. I was talking to Pam about this the other day. But I can look at a picture and I can remember when that was taken. I can remember being in that picture. I can relive it. And also there are just telltale signs. If pretty much know when the pictures were taken, you can also look at things like hairstyles, clothes. You can tell like if there are leaves on the tree, it's summer, leaves not on the tree, it's winter, Christmas trees, school pictures, blah, blah, blah. It's not that hard to put your pictures in chronological order. And this was a fun thing to do, and now I have all this on my computer. I have a picture of me day 1 in the maternity ward, and then I have my baby pictures, and it goes into my toddler years, kindergarten, grade school, high school, college, young adult, not so young adult, middle-aged adult, but I can trace my whole life in pictures now, and that is fun. For me, it is because it really rekindles a lot of beautiful memories, and it also helps me with a lot of self-awareness, like, "Oh, yeah, that's the way I why I act the way I do today because of that incident there or something," but sometimes the pictures will summon that, and, highly recommend it. There are spiritual writers, psychics how do we really know this for sure? But they say that when we die and we transition to the other side, it's like, a day of reckoning, where we watch our entire life story play before our eyes. It's like our whole life, we get to rewatch it again, right? Like real fast or something, so we can assess it and learn from it and like, "Oh, shouldn't have done that. Oh, I wish I'd done that." And I did that. But I thought I've already got that ability. I can literally watch my life go before my eyes on my computer. One of my projects, I've been really bad about the last 5 years. I've got all these pictures on my phone and my tablet and so forth, and thankfully, Facebook organizes a lot of that, so I need to basically, from, like, 2019, 2020, start putting the story back together. I don't wanna lose track because I was very good up to that point, and then there's some other comments here. I also have some photos on floppy disks. Actually, you know what I love are here, I'll just pull it out. I love these. Um, Flash drives. as you can say. And I also learned a smart little trick. Put them on a key ring so you don't lose them. Because I've got several flash drives here for different things that I'm storing. Put them all on a key ring. But flash drives are amazing. And it occurred to me in my emergency bag. Yes, I do have a cloud. Yes, I have the Apple Cloud, but just the same, I think with anything irreplaceable like photos, documents, one of kinds, it doesn't hurt to have more than one copy in one other source. So it's occurred to me I should take this flash drive, get another one, and just take everything on here and put it onto a duplicate and put that flash drive in my emergency bag. So if I have to flee, I haven't lost my family photos. And that's a little trick for all of you. Oh, you know what else I have on here? I don't have just have photos. Back in the 70s, remember Super 8 home movies? I've got all my home movies on here. Also in the era of camcorders, 80s, 90s, so forth. I've got all my camcorder stuff on here too. This is like a 128 gigabyte flash drive. It is amazing how much stuff you can put onto one of these things. I mean, hours and hours and hours of video, thousands and thousands of photos. Highly recommend it because it could save you a lot of grief. It's very heartbreaking when people lose their photos, their photo albums, their family history. And that happened to a lot of people, here in Los Angeles when their homes burned down. I've seen people in the news crying. I've lost everything. I lost my pictures. And many people, when they are asked that question, what would you save in a fire? What are the most important things to you? Well, I mean, aside from the obvious, your pets, your children, like aside from that, materialistic things, most people will say, my family albums, my pictures. You can never get those back. Home movies you can never get back. And also, I was going to say earlier, I was talking about how digital can go wrong. I read a story in the LA Times. There was a very article about this. A woman had all of her wedding photos on her laptop, and she had never bothered to transfer them anywhere else, put them in a cloud or anything. They were just on her laptop. You know what I'm gonna say? The laptop crashed, lost all the wedding pictures, and there was someone else said similarly, she lost, I'm just looking at TV. Kamala Harris is here in LA right now. She just arrived. She's she's here to help people who've lost their homes. She's gonna be giving out food and volunteering. That's beautiful. Um, Lost my train of thought there. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I was talking about the saving things on flash drives and so forth, and the importance of this because it can get lost. Yes, yes. There was stories of people who had things like their children, their baby's first steps, first words on video, lost, obliterated. So yeah, in my opinion, you can't back up things enough. And I am also of the opinion if a photo is really, really, really important to you, when you digitize it, it's just as good as having an original camera negative. Now, aside from digital pictures, now I'm talking about the old pictures, paper pictures. You digitize it, you can print it out, it will look like a perfect clone. And I think anything like that, nothing beats having an actual physical hard copy of the photo. So anyway, that's my soapbox there. Yes, and Ward, you pointed out clouds can get hacked. Yeah. And I still don't know how much I trust them, like for really personal data. Who knows? Who knows how safe we are? It's said we can't have any secrets now or anything. Pretty much anything that we've digitized, we put on internet, social media, cloud. It's probably up for grabs for anyone. We just have to get used to that and accept that this is our life now. What was that? Pam, my mom told her grandkids to grab their papa off the shelf in an emergency like a fire. I Oh dear, I could make a bad joke here about hasn't he already been through one fire? Sorry, I didn't mean that to be disrespectful. No, I agree with you. And I'm glad you said that because in my china cabinet, which was my mother's beloved 19th century china cabinet. Oh, it's just gorgeous. Something I inherited from her. I have little sharing the urns that are about that big, and I have one from my mother and one from my father. And I'm glad you said that because yes, yes, that is something I would wanna grab and put in my bag. Thank you for mentioning that, Pam. Um, yeah, I know, Pam, I know you meant his ashes. That's why I was making that bad joke about the fire. That's how I was a bad, bad joke, and I acknowledge that, and but you Pam, you know me well enough to know I would never mean disrespect to you. Uh, but yes. You know who would have made a joke about that? My dear friend Bart Andrews, the person wrote the I Love Lucy book, and we collaborated on another book together we weren't able to sell, but that's why I have all these I Love Lucy stories. Why I'm such an authority. I spent 3 years working on that book with him. I have some of his ashes. And he would have made a joke about, well, haven't I already been through one fire? You're going to save me from another. He had that kind of humor. And the funny thing is, his ashes, I can't remember if I've told this story or not, but remember those fossil watches? I think they still make them, but they used to be in like in the 90s. They would come in these really nice metal tins. Well, there was this I limited edition sterling silver I Love Lucy watch issued. And Bart and I went together to this fine end department store to each buy a limited edition fossil I Love Lucy watch. And they were in these little black heart shaped tins about that big with the I Love Lucy script on it. And that's where I keep Bart's. I Not all of his ashes, obviously. Those were his family's, but I was given a little bit of his ashes. I put them in the I Love Lucy tin, and I already know Bart would have been, oh, his humor. If that day we were buying those watches, and if he had known he was gonna end up in that tin one day, that was gonna be his future residence, he would have made a joke along those lines. But anyway, um, I like to be able to look back on people with laughter like that. Irreverence. I started to say irrelevance. No, irreverence. Irreverence. Bart told me his mother was, when he was a little boy, his mother was always slapping his face because he was, shall we say, very smart mouthed. Yeah, Goddess Vow, sharing urns. Sharing urns. They're little tiny. I think you might be able to get those on Amazon even. Let me tell you something, and you probably know this already, but funeral homes are notorious for ripping people off. What they do, they play on your grief and they play on your emotions and they try to talk you into spending much more money than you should be spending. And I say this because my mother, when she was cremated, before we split the ashes up and scattered them, she was put in this brass box. We My father handled the situation. This was the funeral home, and I guess he had a catalog to look through, and he chose the brass box for her ashes. Very simple little brass box. That funeral home charged my father $400 for that thing. And if you were to see the box, it looked like something that you would buy at Target to put cookies in. I mean, seriously, it was cheap little metal box. And they charged him $400 for that. So if you are getting sharing urns, no, they shouldn't cost a lot of money. But it's nice because we took my mother and father, my sister. When I say we took our mother and father's ashes back to our hometown in Virginia, and we were trying to decide where's the best place to put them. And we thought no place could be better than the home they lived in for 43 years. Now, here's the problem. That home had new owners. I don't think they would have been too happy with us scattering human remains in the backyard, but we did it anyway. Uh, my sister and I, now, keep in mind, our backyard, we had a big backyard, like 2 acres, and then behind that was a lot of wooded area and stuff. So it wasn't hard. My sister and I basically just went to the fence and climbed over, and we just went to the far back where it was all country and trees anyway. And we were close enough where we didn't feel we were doing anything wrong or disrespectful to the new owners of the home. But at the same time, it was honoring our mother and father, putting their ashes where they belonged. That was their life, that home, where my sister and I were raised. So we scattered them around there, and I remember even taking my feet and making sure the ashes were good in the ground so they wouldn't blow away, and that's where we put them. But my sister and I each kept a sharing urn, one for mom, one for dad. They look like salt and pepper shakers. They do. And here's the funny thing. My sister took care of it, and, I said, "Well, could you mail them to me, ship them to me? How could you get them to me?" And she said, "Oh, I'll just FedEx them to you." And I said, "Great." And I said, "Why don't you send them to my work address?" That's why, because I didn't wanna take any chances on them getting lost, like, put outside my door or something, or somebody stealing a package or something at my home, so I had them sent to my work address. My sister just stuck the urns in a envelope, a FedEx envelope, no padding, no bubble wrap or anything, just stuck them in there. Thankfully, they were okay, thank goodness. But at work, I held up the envelope to all my coworkers and I said, "This is the most bizarre piece of mail I've ever had in my entire life because my mother and father are in this envelope." You know, it doesn't get stranger than that. But, I my family's always like to joke about things, you can probably tell, nothing's sacred. But anyway, that my mother and father were mailed to me in a FedEx envelope, and I have them in my china cabinet now. Uh, anyway, um, let's see, what are some comments here? Let's see, what Pam, I said, "Could we make sure my children are safe before they worry about their papa? Maybe put them closer to the door." Good practical advice. No, that Pam, that's Pam, the mother, speaking there, and you're so right. In fact, I was gonna say that's another thing about any kind of, emergency kit bag, keep it near your door or closet near your door, some place where you can just grab it and leave fast. That's seems like common sense, but a lot of people don't do that, including me. That's why I'm reminding myself to do that along with everyone else. Um, Lord, yeah, boo to that funeral home for your mother's box. Well, but that goes on all the damn time. Um, and it goes on with pet cemeteries too. Well, I'm going to mention it. I've heard people cremating their cats and dogs and paying like close to $1,000 to do it. When my last cat passed away a decade ago, Sasha, she's getting into something over there. Sasha, um, uh, when my last cat passed away, I was told about the Humane Society in Pasadena. They only charged $65, and they did such a beautiful job. I mean, when I say beautiful job, I love that cat. You've seen me with Sasha. Well, this was my other Siamese cat, Charlie. Oh my God. Loved that cat like crazy. Just devastated me. He died, um, just before the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve as 2014 turned to 2015. He did not wanna go into 2015. He was making that very clear. He died, and that's how I started my new year, and because it was New Year's Day, everything was closed. So as gross as this sounds, I had no choice. I wrapped him up in a lot of plastic, and I put him in my freezer so I could take him the next day to be cremated. And a friend gave me, we knew he was dying. He had cancer. And a friend gave me this really nice cardboard boot box to put his body in. And even that was poignant for me because when I got him, yeah, got him at a pet store. And I know you're not supposed to buy from pet stores, and I'll never do that again. But that's where he came from originally. And they gave me a cardboard carrier. So he literally came into my home in a cardboard box. He left my home in a cardboard box. And it's all the emotion started hitting me in the car. And driving from LA to Pasadena. It just all hit me. God, it was just as bad as losing a human being for me, like losing a grandparent, parent. And I later talked to a lot of other people who've lost their pets, and a lot of people don't want to admit that. They're afraid to admit it. But people will say it privately. Yes, it was just like losing a person. So that was hard for me. And so when I got into the Pasadena Humane Society, I was just crying. I was miserable. I was so devastated, and the people there were so wonderful, and they were so comforting and so consoling, and I had to hand the box over so he could be cremated, and it was only $65, and they called me a few days later, it was done, they Charlie's remains, poor thing, he was so wasted away, he was so thin, so that there was like a little clump of ashes about that big, but anyway, they put it in a nice little silver tin, and the tin was in a beautiful purple velvet drawstring bag with a little white artificial flower on top. The way they did it with such compassion for $65, and I've tried to spread the word about that. All these people who get duped, and I do mean duped by pet funeral homes and so forth. And I tell my mother's story about the $400 box, which was basically a cookie tin from Target. Don't let these people play in your emotions and rip you off. Been there. We all learned from our experience. A friend of my mother's, when her husband died, she was so grief-stricken, and she let the funeral home talk her into something like a $15,000 funeral and coffin and all this stuff, and the woman did not have that kind of money, and it made her so destitute. So, anyway, soapbox there. What are some comments here? Well, let's see. I gotta look back here. I'm so sorry. As a family, we paid the Neptune Society here in South Florida. It cost 1,500 each about 10 years ago. Yeah, I've heard of people that the Neptune Society, is that where they take your ashes and scatter them at sea? Which I think is a lovely thing to do. Um, I've often thought, boy, what a topic today. But I've often thought, yeah, I'd want to be cremated because I look at the sheer waste. I mean, it's a personal thing, and you should do whatever brings you comfort. And if you want to have a tombstone and a burial place for your loved one, that's your right, and whatever. But I, it was one of the times I was back east. See, my mother had a bad relationship with her mother and fathers, and they died before I was born. So I knew almost nothing about her parents because she refused to talk about them. She'd always change the subject. So I never saw their graves. I never knew where they were buried. And my father basically went along with my mother. I think he was a little afraid of her. So it wasn't after my mother died that my sister and I finally got to see our grandparents' graves. And when I saw those graves, they were so neglected. I mean, you couldn't even read the tombstones anymore. It had all worn off, and there were weeds growing and everything, and I thought, you know, I I think it makes more sense, just be cremated, be scattered, whatever, it's better for the environment, and anyway, we do what we feel is right for ourselves. I better get off the soapbox here. Let's see, what are some other comments here? I recall when we got my nana's cremated remains in a cardboard box marked human remains in the U.S. Post Service. Yes. Now that you mention that, I won't give her name, but very, very dear friend of mine, her daughter died of a drug overdose in her 30s. It was heartbreaking beyond words. And I knew she was gonna be cremated, and the remains were gonna be sent to her, and she asked me, she said, "I can't be alone. Will you please come over and be with me when the mail carrier gets here?" And when they came, that's exactly what it was, a cardboard box marked human remains, which needless to say, my friend just broke down crying hysterically when she saw that. It was cold. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how else you can do it, how you send something like that, but yeah, I won't forget that. That was harsh. Um, that's his Yep, yeah, someone else got his foul telling that same story. I guess that's just standard procedure. And Ward, you're right. Pets are members of the family. It's my little girl here. Uh, my little Siamese. I love Siamese cats because when you get one cat, you're getting about 10. They have the personalities of about 10 different cats. They're quite psycho. I love them. Let's see here. Let's see. What are some other comments here? from Pam. Oh, Pam, you're gonna send a picture to Joyce. And Ward said Nana was Catholic, but she loathed the idea of worms growing through her, so that's why she insisted on cremation. Well, I had a good friend. What? Sorry for this topic. I really am. I always try to make this show fun, but I guess we're just talking about life here. That's ironic. We're talking about life and we're talking about death. But a very good friend of mine had that same concern. She died at the age of 40. She had a heart condition, and she was adamant, do not put me in the ground. Do not put me in the ground. I do not want to be buried in the ground. So her family bought her a crypt. It was this place where there were like 4 levels, and they bought her like the top level. And I would go out there and visit her grave and talk to her and joke, well, look at your penthouse residence now. I would make those jokes to her. But that's another story while we're on the topic. Do you know I had never been to a funeral in my entire life? Um, Mostly because I had a very, very small family. And I remember the time when my grandmother died. I was far away at college, and I was in the middle of classes, midterms and things. It was just I I wanted to go, but yet I couldn't. I couldn't go. And my family said, "No, no, you better stay back there. You better stay back there." And then I think there was one other family member after I moved to California passed away. So I had never been to a funeral, and I'd been very lucky. I hadn't had any friends die either, but this friend passed away, and she left instructions. She wanted me to give the eulogy. And I was very, very honored by that. But I thought, my God, I've never been to a funeral in my life. And not only that, I'm going to be delivering the eulogy. And, when you're put in a situation like that, I brought a piece of paper, some notes, but it's kind of like doing the show. I just opened up my heart and just started talking. And here I'm at a funeral. I started telling funny stories about her, very funny stories. And I was like, after I was done, I thought, oh my God, was I offensive? And her family came up to me. Even the minister came to me and said, that was perfect what you did. You celebrated her life. Her sister even said that to me. She said, my sister would have loved your eulogy. But I told some, no, oh my God, one story is a little naughty. Well, no, not that kind of naughty. No, no. This was, um, looking at the time here, hour and a half. I'm gonna have to sign out soon. One of the cemeteries out here, Forest Lawn. If you watch my videos, I've done some pieces where I go to celebrities' graves and tell a little story about them. Well, Jean Harlow's grave is closed off to the public. Her mother, uh, at the time, signed these documents forbidding the public from visiting her daughter's grave, and I asked about it, and they said, "We have to honor that commitment forever, ever." So they can't open Jean Harlow's grave to the public. Well, my friend Susan said, "I know a way around that." She said, "Here, we go to the gate. We take a credit card. We slide it through the lock." Yes, there should be like Mission Impossible music in the background. Slide the credit card through the lock. Look how it opens up the door. Now, here's what you got to do. You got to stand against the walls and move so the security cameras don't see you. Slide along the walls, and sure enough, got there and got to Jean Harlow's beautiful, beautiful grave. She has this beautiful Art Deco pink marble mausoleum. It's just spectacular. And a lot of her friends and family used to call her the baby. So it's on there, our baby. And then Jean Harlow and her dates. And there are 2 other spaces in there, and allegedly it was her love of the time. It was said he was her fiance, the actor William Powell, purchased the crypt, and one of those was going to be for him, one was going to be for Jean's mother. Ended up only Jean is there to this day. But anyway, Susan was the one I broke into the mausoleum to get to Jean Harlow's grave. And some reason I told that story at her funeral. I was basically admitting that the 2 of us had committed a crime together. Good natured crime, but a crime just the same. I guess it wasn't the worst thing in the world. The security guards would have just tossed us out on our ears, I suppose, under the best conditions. Let's see. Let's see. Where's some other things here? Yeah, celebrate Ward. Thank you. Yeah, celebrating that friend's life via funny stories. Uh, once went to a funeral with the minister talking about how the deceased insisted on his wife playing tennis with a broken hand. It's all just life. It's just life. I've thought, I don't know when I'm gone, my friends are going to do anything for me or not, my family, but I'd want it to be fun. I would want people telling the wildest, most outrageous stories. I'd want people laughing their asses off. I'd want happy music, good food, drinks. Celebrate. A life should be celebrated, not mourned. That's how I feel for myself. Uh, why that minister thought that was the most appropriate tale about the deceased, I don't get. I don't know. Maybe because that he was just looking for any kind of story, and that's all he could find. Um, oh, I have a feeling my friends would have some really good stories to tell about me. I'll probably be on the other side watching this going, "Boy, I'm glad I'm dead now." Yes, that was William Powell, the actor from the Thin Man movies. Yeah, there are different accounts. Some say he was engaged to Jean Harlow, and others are saying they were just in a close relationship. Um, and Jean had this beautiful 150 carat sapphire ring that he gave her, and many insisted that was an engagement ring. I mean, I saw a picture of it looked like a big golf ball on her finger. I don't know if that would be the sort of thing you'd wear every day as your engagement ring. But anyway, I've been on here about an hour and a half now, so I think I should sign out. I was worried I wouldn't have enough material for a show. There's always enough, but does anybody have a question or anything before I go? Any comments or anything? Or have I pretty much talked your ear off talking about death and cremation and oh, wow. Wow, what a story, but what fun. I say this every time. I really appreciate all of you so much for being so faithful to me. And I do apologize for last week that it had to be the kind of show it was, but it was a, it was an emergency and it had to be. So I thank you for coming back this week and staying with me. I really appreciate it. Of course, tomorrow I will be on the Oracle of Whimsy channel, Dr. Whimsy Anderson. We do a show called Taco Tuesdays. Whimsy is the whole reason I'm even doing this show. She got me to do that show first and doing my own videos and things. And Whimsy always gets me out of my comfort zones, whether I want to or not. But she's very good for me. She's quite an angel. So I thank you. I send you my love. I'm going to sign out and looking for the little end stream here. Say goodnight for now. And God willing, I'll be here next week. Oh, Joyce, thank you so much. Love you too. Bye.